Useless old man should just take no seat. If they can't walk anymore, they should just quit the company already. I've been working in sales at my company for 30 years. Following an accident, I became disabled and couldn't let go of my cane. My female successor, Kathy, looked down on me. It's a nuisance for everyone else if you just stick around. That might be true, but her way of saying it was quite harsh. As I was pondering what to do, a woman appeared. My name is Michael. I was a salesman at an interior design company. I had been working hard in the sales department since I was a fresh graduate, but a few years ago, I was involved in a traffic accident during work and my leg was severely injured. My knee became stiff and difficult to move. Since then, I've been forced to live a somewhat inconvenient life, unable to walk without a cane. I tried hard with rehabilitation, but I never managed to walk as I used to. I could no longer travel around to meet clients, and my work shifted to mainly desk work at the office. The accident happened about 2 years ago. I was in a branch office, driving a company car to a client's place as usual. I believe it was a right turn ahead. The sky was clear on a beautiful autumn day, neither too hot nor too cold, just comfortable. Though it was a major road, it wasn't crowded due to the time. However, the visibility at the upcoming intersection was a bit poor. While enjoying the cheerful music from the speakers, I entered the right turn lane. Oops, a pedestrian, huh? As I was doing my safety check approaching the intersection, I saw a truck speeding in the lane where it should have been stopping for the red light. Hey, you're going to stop, right? The truck didn't seem to be slowing down, swaying quite a bit. There were still pedestrians crossing, and the line of cars waiting to turn right behind me was packed. No way, The truck didn't stop at the stop line and crashed into the car I was in. My car was thrown into an indescribable spin. It was fortunate that the driver's seat wasn't hit directly. Ouch. I felt like I lost consciousness for a few seconds or minutes. When I looked around, the car was distorted, and the windshield was cracked all over. The airbag had deployed, indicating the impact was beyond imagination. I unbuckled my seatbelt, forced to open a creaking, defumed door, and crawled out. The intersection was in complete chaos. The truck that hit me had knocked down several street trees and stopped in a convenience store parking lot. Is the driver over there okay? If the driver had lost consciousness due to a medical condition and went out of control, it must be tough for them too. With that thought, I tried to cross the street. Whoa! I fell within just a few steps. I instinctively reached out my hands, but my forehead hit the ground. A warm sensation trickled down towards my chin from where I hit. However, more concerning than the pain or discomfort was my leg that wouldn't muster any strength. Can't I plant my feet? Looking at my aching right leg, it appeared like a mere stick, stretched out straight. Despite the pain, I tried to stand up, but my knee wouldn't bend. Forcing it to bend seemed futile, as it likely couldn't support my weight. Are you okay? As I lamented my inability to stand, the truck driver rushed over to me. He seemed to have injuries above his right eye and on his right side, but he appeared okay enough to run. That was somewhat relieving. Just as I thought that, my vision started to spin. I'll call an ambulance right now. Despite his calls, my eyelids gradually fell. Initially, I tried to keep awake, but then realized it would be easier to just sleep, so I stopped resisting. When I next woke up, the first thing I saw was an unfamiliar white ceiling. Moving my eyes, I saw curtains, some machines I couldn't identify, and an IV drip. Hospital, huh? The memory of the accident flashed back in my mind. But I thought it must have been a bad dream or something, so I tried to move my body. My neck, Both arms and my left leg moved just fine. This is bad. Only my right leg wouldn't move at all. More precisely, I couldn't bend my knee. I could lift it from the hip if I tried, but there was an unfathomable fear of moving it forcefully, making me hesitate. "Are you awake, Michael?" As I groaned to myself, a man in a white coat parted the curtains and appeared. "I am Dr. Miller, in charge of your care." "Thanks." My brusque greeting seemed to darken Dr. Miller's expression. He said nothing for a few seconds, just looking at my immobile right leg. "How's my leg? How long will it take to heal? When can I start driving and moving around again?" "It won't be immediate. Let's work hard on rehabilitation. I'll assist you." From Dr. Miller's hesitation and tone, I could somewhat guess. My leg would probably never return to how it was before. Running freely was likely impossible now. Strangely, I felt no sadness or anger towards the truck driver. I just felt incredibly sudden. Even though I understood that my nearly 30-year career as a salesman had abruptly ended, I couldn't fully grasp it emotionally. "Hey, when can I drive again? When will I be able to travel all over the country?" "Michael." Even though I knew it was impossible, I kept asking Dr. Miller the same questions. I wanted affirmation. I wanted him, a medical expert, to tell me that I could be a salesman again. But he didn't say that. Giving hope and not lying contradicted each other in this situation. As a doctor, he probably couldn't say anything irresponsible. It was then that I first shed tears. The cause of the accident was the truck driver falling asleep at the wheel. It wasn't due to a loss of consciousness from a chronic condition or drowsiness from medication side effects. The working conditions at the trucking company he worked for were extremely poor, and he hadn't been getting enough sleep. The night before the accident, he had hardly slept and was on his 12th consecutive day of work. "I'm truly sorry." The driver, who had brought a gift as a gesture of apology, offered his deep apologies to me, seated in my wheelchair. "Please don't apologize. You're a victim in this situation too." Since the fault lies with his company, I couldn't blame him. Besides, no matter how much he apologized or how much money I received, it wouldn't make my legs work again. I will have to live with this disability for the rest of my life. That fact remains unchanged. Well, it's time for my rehabilitation, so I'll be taking my leave now. If there's anything I can do for you, please let me know. I want to take some responsibility. Despite my telling him not to apologize, he continued to do so as I left. "In that case, could you push my wheelchair to the rehabilitation room? I'm not used to operating it and my arms are sore." "Of course, leave it to me." Though I had asked for his assistance, neither of us knew what to talk about, and we reached the destination in silence. He had to go to the police station that afternoon, so we parted ways there. As for me, I continued with my usual rehabilitation routine. I would fall into my right leg, then get up using the strength of my arms and left leg. I repeated this frustrating process so much that I sighed. As a result of continuing with rehabilitation, I reached a level where I could walk somewhat with the aid of a cane. However, I couldn't work outside as actively as before. Not wanting to resign myself to unemployment, I obediently followed instructions to transfer to the administrative department of the same company. At the same time, for certain reasons, it was decided that I would transfer from the branch to the headquarters. After I started working in the administrative department at the headquarters, I received a message from Kathy, who worked at the branch. Kathy had taken over my duties at the branch and was a 30-year-old woman serving as the manager of the sales division. It seemed she wanted to visit the headquarters for inspection. The lack of interaction between the headquarters and the branches had been an issue, so this was a good opportunity. Thinking so, I accepted her request. She is coming to the headquarters today. As someone familiar with her, I volunteered to be her guide. It looks like Kathy has just arrived. Welcome to the headquarters. How can I help you today? I walked to the office in trance, leaning on my cane, to greet her. Thank you. Please show me around as soon as possible. I don't have much time to spare. I had intended to welcome her warmly, but she spoke with a somewhat cold attitude. I've heard that people nowadays tend to be more detached, but is this what they mean? Yet, somehow, she seems a bit different from before. Understood. I'll show you around. First, I'll start with the office we're in. Turning around, I indicate each section with my left hand. My right hand still on the cane. This is the administrative department. Since my transfer, I've been working here. I may be in other areas at times, but feel free to approach me if you need anything. Even as I said that, Kathy didn't even offer a courtesy smile. She just kept scribbling notes. I want to engage with her more casually, but I wonder if it's a lost cause. That back there is accounting, and by the window over there is the development department. As I continued with the detailed explanations, Kathy closed her notebook with a snap and started walking briskly. Kathy. She proceeded without saying a word. Following her, it seemed she was going around greeting each department head. If that was her plan, I wish she would have told me. I sighed inwardly at this thought. This is the Vice President's office, and beyond that is the President's office. They've been informed of your visit for inspection. Is that so? She didn't meet my gaze even for a second, but finally responded. Kathy then moved on to the Vice President's office without a second glance. After a few minutes, she came out and headed straight to the break room, where she began greeting people who were making coffee. She skipped the President's office upon seeing a not present sign. Kathy moved on from one place to the next without waiting for me, dragging my leg along. As she said earlier, she must be busy. Next is the development room. It's located above the factory, so shall we go? Oh. Kathy had already started walking in the middle of my explanation. Her heels clicked as she ascended the stairs. Since I needed to use the elevator, I had to take a longer route. Are you ready yet? When I arrived at the development room, Kathy was waiting with crossed arms, looking irritated. I'm sorry for the delay. It's because of my leg. I apologized with a sheepish smile, but she glanced at my cane, sighed, and looked away with a hum sound. Taking out a notepad and pen from her pocket was probably her way of urging me to hurry up with the explanation. Here, we handle everything from interior design and planning to handmade prototypes and considering mass production. Technical details are hard to grasp from verbal explanations alone, and I wasn't familiar with them either. With this in mind, I had already spoken to the head of the technical department, David, in advance. Please, come in. Oh, and please change into slippers at the entrance. Yes. She responded coldly again and entered the development room. She was listening to the explanations, but I couldn't help feeling like she disliked me. So, this is how the development process flows. I see. That's very clear. Kathy was very engaged in David's explanations, nodding vigorously. Her tone was bright and cheerful, a stark contrast to her interactions with me. Seeing this, I felt a bit uneasy. Did I do something to upset her? As we were heading to the reception room after the last part of the tour, Kathy surprisingly initiated a conversation. Why did you come to the headquarters, Michael? Well, it's because of this leg, I suppose. I really wanted to continue as a salesman, but I can't drive anymore. As usual, there was no response, only the sound of my cane and her heels echoing in the hallway. People at the branch said they miss you. Wouldn't it have been better if you had stayed? The way she phrased it didn't seem like a pure question. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. but it felt like there was an underlying message of, isn't it presumptuous for someone like you to be working at the headquarters? Well, the transfer was decided by my superiors at the time. Even though I tried to be vague, Kathy's expression didn't clear up. It seemed she held the idea of working at the headquarters in high regard. I believe that the work doesn't change whether at the branch or headquarters, but she seemed to think differently. Being involved in major projects and career advancement seemed to require a position at the headquarters, in her opinion. And she's not the only one who thinks this way. I've heard there are other employees who share Kathy's perspective. You could have stayed comfortably in the countryside. Why were you transferred to the headquarters? Well, I'm not sure why. Kathy was grumbling complaints while walking a few steps ahead of me. The distance between us kept growing. It must be tough for the headquarters too, having someone who's a drag on the team. Perhaps thinking she had made a clever joke, she looked back at my leg, smirking as she spoke. I've become used to such comments and continued to ignore them without taking them to heart. Don't you think it's nonsensical that you, who can hardly do anything now, are at the headquarters while I'm stuck in a rural branch? Her veiled insults gradually turned into direct rudeness. We arrived at the reception room amidst this uncomfortable atmosphere. Upon opening the door to the reception room, she immediately took the seat. She crossed her legs and leaned back in her chair. Useless old man should just take no seat. If you can't walk anymore, you should just quit the company already. It's a nuisance for everyone else if you just stick around. As soon as we entered the enclosed space, she insulted me with a laugh. That must have been her true feelings behind all the snide remarks she had made so far. Ha ha ha, perhaps you're right. I responded with a laugh, not letting it bother me, which only seemed to frustrate Kathy more. Being unfazed by her words must have been irksome to her. Following her words, I didn't take a seat and stood there. Then, there was a knock at the door. "Excuse me." With that, the door opened, and a woman entered. In her hand, she carries a tray with 2 cups of coffee. Her name was Sophie. She was the head of the secretarial department and served as the president's secretary. Often featured on the cover of the company newsletter, she was somewhat of a celebrity within the company, known across both headquarters and branches. Of course, Kathy would know her face and name. Why would the president's secretary be serving coffee to us? Kathy was surprised and asked this question with wide eyes, but Sophie seemed too flustered to respond. "Dad, why are you standing there? Did your leg get worse?" She abandoned serving coffee and showed concern for my leg instead. The coffee on the tray, though not spilled, was rippling. "No, it's not like that. I did walk more than usual today, so I'm a bit tired, though. Could I have some coffee?" "Oh, why don't you sit down? You had me worried." With my explanation, she regained her composure and carried the tray to Kathy. "I'm sorry to keep you waiting." Wait, are you two related? Like, are you father and daughter?" Picking up on the unexpected connection from our conversation, she asked the president's secretary. "Yes. Sophie is my daughter. While some people are aware of this, others simply think we share the same last name by coincidence." Kathy was one such example. The president recently changed, and now my father is serving as the president. I have the honor of being his secretary, though it's a bit embarrassing to be a family member in this role. The president changed. Kathy's mouth fell open in shock at Sophie's words. Wasn't this communicated to the branch as well? Perhaps there was a misunderstanding. Kathy turned pale, her previously crossed legs now placed squarely on the floor. I hadn't mentioned it, thinking she was already aware. So, she didn't know. The person she had been disparaging and belittling was the president of the headquarters. It must have been a shocking revelation for her. Kathy, it seems you've been quite supportive to my father. Before anything else, I'd like to thank you as his daughter. Such an attitude towards someone with a disability really shows how self-centered you are. I overheard the conversation before I entered the room. Sophie fixed a straight, cold gaze on Kathy. Do you even realize what you've said and to whom? Suddenly lowering her tone, Sophie confronted Kathy. Taken aback by such a sudden change, Kathy slid back in her chair. Stop it, Sophie. I interjected, and Sophie immediately reverted to her usual self. In the uncomfortable silence, I addressed Kathy. You must have your own thoughts about me, right? I know I've caused you a lot of trouble with my sudden transfer and the handover wasn't sufficient. I truly apologize for that. I spoke calmly, trying to reason with her. She looked utterly astonished by my words. I've heard a lot from the branch office about how well you're doing. Me. As I nodded, she slightly looked down. Then, lifting her gaze, she began to speak softly. I was often compared to you at the branch office. It wasn't harassment, nor was it about being better or worse. But taking over my job and living up to expectations was hard and pressurizing for her. Everyone says, it's okay if you can't do it like Michael, you're not him. I don't usually like to say this, but I have 30 years of experience. Expecting the same or even more from someone else is unreasonable. Perhaps that's why people said such encouraging words to her, as she recounted. But to Kathy, it felt like a burden. No matter what I do, I can't surpass Michael, let alone catch up. It's terrifying. She was tormented by the fear of not meeting expectations and jealousy. She felt like she didn't belong. That's why she had been harsh towards me, she explained with tearful eyes. And every time I heard people regretting your transfer, I felt like I was nothing. Every time she heard praises for me, Kathy felt like she was being labeled incompetent. It's not just about others' perceptions. Every time I looked at the work you left, I was filled with anxiety and uncertainty. She felt crushed from the outside and the inside. Wondering if I could fill your shoes, who had raised the branch's sales to be comparable to the headquarters, was my daily torment. Kathy confessed through tears. After a moment of silence, I spoke up. What's expected of you and me is different. Chasing after my shadow won't get you anywhere, I believe. Originally, my goal was to acquire new clients and train employees, as commanded by the previous president. After achieving this, I was assigned to transfer to the headquarters, leaving the branch in the hands of Kathy and others. I enjoyed being a salesman and was reluctant, but then that accident happened. With my right leg now impaired, I resignedly accepted the transfer. Since the branch is in a rural area, acquiring new clients will be tough due to the limited target demographic. What I want from you is to maintain and improve quality. I'd like you to enhance customer satisfaction from your unique perspective. Saying this, Kathy showed a soft expression I had never seen before. Well, I was hoping you'd realize this on your own. I accept the assignment. Kathy nodded repeatedly, tearfully making her declaration. However, Sophie still lashed out at Kathy. She wasn't ready to forgive. Trying to make this a heartwarming story won't make me forgive you. Your attitude towards my father earlier revealed your true character. Sophie shared with Kathy the hardships and the events that had transpired with me. That accident could have been life-threatening with just one wrong step. The rehabilitation afterwards was tough, too. He still goes for sessions whenever he has the time. Despite my disability, I truly wanted to continue working as a salesman. I had to suppress that desire and leave the branch office in everyone's hands. And so, that's why I can't forgive statements that trample on my father's struggles. Sophie. Hearing her angry words, Kathy looked down again. Seemingly afraid to meet Sophie's eyes, Kathy finally spoke. I'm truly sorry. I deeply apologize for my naive thoughts. It's all right, Kathy. Mr. Johnson. She tentatively raised her face. I'm well aware that my disability has been an inconvenience to everyone. Saying this made both of them shake their heads. But I continued anyway. When walking in a crowd, it's natural for people in a hurry to wish I wouldn't walk so slowly. I'm mindful in narrow stores too, but that's because the world is built for those without disabilities. It can't be helped. Hearing this, they both fell silent. Seeing their reactions, I cheerfully suggested, let's end this discussion here. I shifted the conversation to a different work topic, and we didn't talk about anything else after that. Later, I received an overly formal apology letter from Kathy. She had gone to the trouble of handwriting a lengthy message on a paper, sealing it in an envelope. Inside the envelope, along with the letter, was a proposal. A cafe adopting universal design where both able-bodied and disabled people can enjoy together. It was a plan for a store that integrates a cafe with our company's interior goods. The design sketches were sent in a separate email. They included designs with no elevation changes for those with walking difficulties. The proposal also includes the installation of handrails that balance both aesthetics and functionality, as well as the development of chairs that are easy to sit in. The proposal also suggested providing tableware that could be used by people with arm and hand disabilities, allowing everyone to choose according to their needs. Given the highland prices in urban areas where our headquarters is located, the proposal was envisioned to be implemented around the branch office. It was an excellent proposal. I couldn't help but call Kathy at the branch office. After receiving advice from you to approach things in my own way, I gave it some thought and came up with a proposal I sent you. Yes, it's a really interesting proposal. Let's definitely give it a try. It seems she had been doing a lot of thinking since that inspection day. I wanted to raise the issue of how we can live together without inconveniences, regardless of one's physical condition. This proposal was one of the initiatives presented as part of that idea. Impressed, I was determined to make this project a success as a company. As the president, I would do everything in my power to support it. After some time, the cafe started to become a reality. Kathy led the creation of the barrier-free interior. She had conducted thorough research by visiting facilities for the physically disabled. Rather than relying on imagination or consideration, she thoroughly identified the actual stress points for those directly affected by conducting realistic assessments. The completed interior was indeed something I could navigate without stress. But Kathy still seemed unsatisfied. Are you going somewhere? Having some time, I had Sophie drive me to see the cafe, where I ran into Kathy about to get into a company car. Jess, I'm off to a university specializing in welfare to take lectures from the professors. That's a great idea. Her proactive approach was truly befitting of a sales manager. She is also taking the lead in promoting it in various places. Take care. I hope you come back with some interesting stories. As I walked beside her, Sophie offered these words of encouragement. Yeah, I'll be back soon. I promise to bring back some great stories. Despite their previous tension, they had somehow become friends. They've even started going out together on their days off. After some time, the cafe project turned out to be a huge success. It gained a fair amount of attention on social media, and sales for our main line of interior products skyrocketed. I've been wondering if this single project might have already surpassed the shadow of Mel, under which she once felt pressured. It was on such a day, while I was pondering this, that I received a message. The cafe's social contributions had been recognized by the local government, and they wanted to award us. Naturally, we gratefully accepted the award. I hope this would further boost our company's morale. This award not only celebrated the cafe's success but also strongly affirmed Kathy's efforts in its planning. So, in addition to the external award, we'll also hold a ceremony within the company. I announced this during our weekly all-hands meeting. Of course, Kathy would be the one to receive the award. Her hard work was the reason for this excitement. We held a simple ceremony at the branch office. As the president, I read the award aloud and handed the trophy to Kathy. She received a round of applause from everyone, a celebration of her achievement. Thank you, Kathy. The cafe is a great success because of you. It's the fruit of your labor. Please continue to drive it forward. Yes, leave it to me. Her response was energetic, and her face was bright and refreshed. There was no sign of the pressure or inferiority complex she once had. Instead, her expression was filled with confidence and pride. Years after the accident, I still haven't been able to let go of my cane. I still attend rehabilitation sessions regularly. Dr. Miller, is there really nothing that can be done about this right leg? Since then, I've completely given up on making a full recovery. As a result, I now ask such questions more as a joke. Well, that's up to your will. The doctor would reply with a laugh. Sure. Though I say I've given up, I feel it's slightly different upon reflection. Even with my right leg not fully functional, the kindness and understanding of those around me allow me to work and live without issues. Realizing this made me less obsessed with a complete recovery. It might be inconvenient, but it's far from unhappy. So, I've decided to live with this disability for as long as I can. A society where everyone shows empathy and helps each other. A society where, regardless of any disabilities, people don't feel stressed. Like that cafe, I want to contribute through my work at the interior company to create more such places. Looking out the hospital window at the sky, these were my thoughts.